Welcome to Morning Coffee with Warren from Braddon Business Centre. In this series of podcasts, we discuss a range of business issues and experiences with successful business operators from throughout northwest Tasmania. Well, good morning. This is Warren Moore from Braddon Business Centre, and I'm talking with Heath and John Shipley, the owners of Burnie Fuel Injection Services. They're located in Cooey, near Burnie. We are talking to Heath and John in a couple of areas today. The first area we'll be talking about is how they purchased the business from the previous owner and how all that process has worked. The second area is how they have adopted new technology, the process they went through with that in terms of selecting technology, commissioning, financing, training. That's a difficult thing to do for a lot of small businesses, but these guys have done this, we believe, particularly well. Heath and John took over the business of Burnie Fuel Injection Services 8 years ago. Since then, they have moved location, adopted technology, so it's been quite a period of change for them. But I'd really like to talk to them about how they went about the process of identifying that this is a good business to buy, the sale process, the transition process from the previous owner to themselves, and how all that process went. So Heath, I'd like to ask you about your business. So can you tell me what sort of operations you have here and what sort of things do you do for people?
Okay, Warren, so there's a few parts to the business. Firstly, there's business-to-business sales and component sales and remanufacture. That is, a fairly major part of our business, selling to other workshops and the remanufacture of fuel pump components, which is, what the business initially started with. And then the other side of the business is in the workshop. We currently employ about 10 people, including office staff and technicians. And that side of the business is mainly based around four-wheel drive and diesel servicing, both to business customers and also to general public through our Bosch car service dealership as well.
Thanks, Heath. Can you tell me a little bit about your background? Where have you come from in order to get to here?
I started out, a work career as a fitter machinist up at Lactos as a 16-year-old. And from there, I was lucky enough to be able to do a lot of extra courses in hydraulics and pneumatics. And then from there, I went into kind of a semi-sales type role for a hydraulic and pneumatic company. And they put me through a diploma in business management and one in marketing. And I had a bit of a crew under me, and it was quite a successful business. And then I had an opportunity to move to Rockhampton to work with Eaton Hydraulics, which is a Fortune 500 company. I was in charge of, mining contracts for them based out of Rockhampton and travelled all over Queensland and New South Wales. And then I wanted an opportunity to come back home and start a family and settle down. And Dad knew Glenn for many years. And the opportunity come up to buy a share in the business, and then that's what I did done another trade to support it also.
So Glenn is the previous owner of Burnie Fuel Injection Services, and John is your father, who's come into the business at a bit of a later date to work as one of the shareholders and also to work in the business with you. So how would you describe how Burnie Fuel Injection Services is different to other mechanics workshops?
Or how in-depth we get into the diesel system is probably what varies the most from a traditional kind of workshop because of all the pump room equipment and the diagnostic equipment that we need, one, to sustain our dealerships and also to effectively diagnose and recondition and repair and remanufacture.
From the outside looking in, one of the areas that I see that is quite different is that most mechanics workshops are mainly business to consumer businesses, whereas the largest part of your business, from my understanding, is a business to business. And the business to consumer part is a much smaller part of that. So can you tell me who is a typical business customer of yours?
A typical business customer, demographically, would be another workshop. And that workshop doesn't necessarily have to be in Burnie. It can be statewide. I have quite a number of customers in Hobart. They pull a pump off and send it up to us, or injectors. On the workshop side of things, a typical customer of ours would be a kind of a fleet customer or a customer that has a larger number of vehicles.
So moving on to the business itself, how did you know the business was for sale?
Just through word of mouth. As I said, my dad has known Glenn for quite some years, and Glenn had expressed that he was keen to wind back a little bit.
And how did you know this business was for you?
Well, I'd done a lot of research over probably a 12-month period, really, because I was in Rockhampton at the time. I done a bit of a study myself and downloaded some ABS statistics and ran some numbers and some forecasting and that sort of stuff of what I wanted to do to make sure the market was big enough and I guess ensure that it was going to be here for a long time.
So I suppose really your experience and qualifications in business management and marketing was sort of fairly useful because in my experience, not too many mechanics would look at the market and the market size and the size of the opportunity and the attractiveness of the opportunity. They'd just look at the workshop and is this something I could work in and look at some numbers and see how profitable it was. But you took the extra stage to work out, is this something which is a commercially profitable operation in the fullness of time?
Yeah, there was a few reasons for doing that though. Firstly, I was genuinely interested in the type of work that I would be coming to. So that was the initial interest, but then I was leaving quite a good opportunity up in Queensland because there was a few changes and they wanted to put me in a different role. So I kind of needed to make sure for myself it was going to be a viable option and to start a family and build a future,
One of the most difficult issues when it comes to buying a business is agreeing on price. How did you go about that?
There's a little bit of toing and froing, of course, because I was in Rockhampton. I was lucky enough to be good friends with an accountant and also a lawyer up there. So they helped me with the process and we done a bit of toing and froing and we agreed upon a price and we went from there.
So you would say it's quite important to get some other professionals involved in that part of the decision whether or not to buy?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I've just noticed during the interview, Heath and John, that it started to rain outside. We've had enough rain recently. I thought that'd be enough, but it seems like it's coming down again. What about the changeover period? I mean, there's a period of time where the initial owner is still there. You're coming into the business. The initial owner, probably a bit territorial and a bit guarded about the business and where they've brought it to. And is this person going to muck all that up? Or how did all that process happen?
To re-clarify on your previous question, which will lead into this one as well, is you asked if I thought it was important to get some other professionals involved. That was actually one of the things that helped during the transaction because to make it a fair, environment for both parties involved, we drew up between my lawyer and Glenn's lawyer, they drew up a bit of a contract that was mutually agreeable because the idea was, and this did happen, is that it was only a 50% stakehold initially. So I was very lucky in the fact that Glenn, who has 30 odd years experience at that time, he was staying on with the business. So I guess we needed some formal documentation around responsibilities and if we needed to go to a vote, what would happen there and that sort of stuff. So basically at that stage, Dad was actually listed as because I was buying my share myself and Glenn and his wife were both directors. So we assigned Dad as a director to the company back then so that if, potentially if we needed to go to a vote on anything, which we never needed to, but if we needed to go to a vote on anything, it was 2 against 2.
So John, how did you see your role in all this?
Basically, I think I was more or less just trying to help him get a leg into the business and also give him any support I could. That was my role initially. Down the track, I started to do contract work for them.
Back to you, Heath. What changes did you want to make going into the business? I mean, you've seen the business, how it was running with Glenn. It's looking much different now than what it was. How did you go about deciding what changes you actually wanted to make?
We didn't sort of come in and just go willy-nilly making changes. I needed to understand the business a lot better and work out where the bottlenecks were and address them accordingly. The first thing that we done, we had quite a bottleneck as far as workflow was concerned. So in our previous shed, the landlord was not willing to put an extra roller door in so we could add hoists. So Dad and I, we modified the shed and bought a roller door and put another hoist in. So that was actually quite a marked improvement. Initially the business only had one hoist when we initially moved in. Now we have 6 and we could probably do with another 6, but we don't have the room. But yeah.
I think this is probably a good time to sort of move to what happened next in your business, and that is the significant decision to upgrade the technical capability of the business, particularly in relation to assessing and manufacturing and modifying fuel injectors. That was a big decision to make. It was a lot of money, and that's where Braddon Business Centre became involved, particularly in looking at a number of scenarios for profit and cash forecasting and financing and so on. So how did you go about making the decision as to what to buy? Because it was a big decision to do.
So I guess how it all come about was we were going for a Denso dealership, and part of the contract was that we had to upgrade one of our test benches. We already had quite a good capability in the test room. However, one of our main benches was actually a belt drive, and Denso stipulated that it had to be a direct drive test bench to meet the changing ISO standard. So we had to purchase some new equipment. We looked at everything from Chinese manufacture to some Bosch benches and Turkish benches and all that sort of stuff. And then we decided that we would stick with something that we knew and trusted. After probably 6 months worth of toing and froing and research, we decided we'd be better off to stick to something that we knew and trusted, and we decided to buy the Hartridge bench with the full digital metering, and also we needed to upgrade our common rail test equipment as well. So when we contacted you, it was, okay, we have this opportunity to become a Denso dealer. However, we have to invest quite a sum of money, and you obviously help with the profit forecasting. And the numbers were quite accurate, if not probably on the lean side. It was even better than we had crunched.
One of the things which is becoming really obvious to me as we go through this is just how much research goes in all the way along the line, whether to identify the business, working out whether the business is a good one to work in, to identify the opportunities, the technology changes, how we go about it. It's not a decision that you can reach just overnight. It sounds like there needs to be a lot of time and a lot of other people involved. Is that how you'd see it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we were kind of looking at investing the equivalent value of like a new 200 series Land Cruiser. So it was sort of something I didn't want to jump into blindly. So
you've decided which gear you want to buy. You've looked at the numbers to see, okay, can we afford this and how much can we afford and so on. So you had the negotiations with the bank, and I think John was involved in that somewhere along the line in terms of financing at that stage, or not really?
No, not really. It was Paul Kearney down at Capital Court. We had a meeting with him, and he ran through some options, and ultimately that's the way we decided to go.
And as far as the installation and the commissioning, I mean, you're buying new technology. Quite often, people will buy technology and think, gosh, where do I get the training programs? Where do I get the skills in how to use it? And as a consultant, been around the traps for a while, there are workshops all over the place which has got gear sitting in the corner which someone's bought but really don't know how to use it, and the skills in commissioning and upskilling their staff are difficult to find. How did you go about that part?
Well, that was part of the deal with purchasing that equipment, is that and it was one of the main decisions ultimately to steer ourselves away from a Turkish-made bench or a Indian bench or a Chinese bench, is that there is a support network here in Australia, and it was done through Delphi Technology, and Chris from Delphi come down and commissioned it and done some training on our equipment.
Okay, so you're up and running, you're working it. What impact has this had on your business since then?
Okay, from that capital purchase, basically it meant that we could provide a better quality product to our customers. It made it a little bit quicker for us to build a pump and to test it and to get it out the door in a timely manner. The customer gets a better quality product, it gets a more repeatable product, and also at the same time we purchased a common rail tester, and that has helped not only for our in-house diagnosis but for diagnosing injector problems from other workshops.
So who else in Tasmania can do this sort of work?
I guess there's 4 places in Tassie, Hobart, Launceston and Devonport. We have quite a good relationship with the majority of them.
So each region pretty well has got similar sorts of capability, or do you see yours as probably better than others?
I'm kind of a conservative person, so I'm not going to say that we're better than anybody else, but I guess we do have quite a good capability. It has definitely improved our capability over over what we used to have.
So just to finish things up, if there was somebody else there listening to here and saying, geez, I'd like to go down the buying the business and the technology path, what would be some pearls of wisdom, what, from your experience, that you'd like to pass on?
I guess just do your research, and if you need help from somebody, obviously you're doing the interview, so I'm going to give you a bit of a plug because you helped me out. But that is true, because I mean there's a few other businesses around the place that have been looking at expansion or relocation, much like what we've just gone through. And I've actually given your name and number and said, just make sure you do your due diligence, because, I mean, for one, you need a good business plan to go to a bank anyway, for a start, and also, I guess a business plan or some forecasting from somebody like yourself gives you a little bit more leverage with the bank also. I mean, I can write whatever number I want down on a piece of paper. I mean, I guess your forecasting is based on facts and figures of you understanding our business. So just do your due diligence for sure.
And John, have you got any comments that you'd like to make?
No, I think Burnie Fuel's tracking really good, and that's what I'm happy about.
Well, thanks, Heath, and thank you, John. Thank you for your time. It sounds like it's onwards and upwards from here on for you guys. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
If you're thinking of starting a business, have a specific business problem, want to grow your business and stay one step ahead of your competitors, reach out to Braddon Business Centre at braddonbusiness.com.au, and don't forget to subscribe.